Welcome back to Fuel Up Classic. Now, if you haven't subscribed already, please do. It makes all the difference. And if you love classic cars of all different types, all different varieties, then I truly hope this is the channel for you. Now, today's video is a car that I have really wanted to feature on the channel for a long time. It's just been difficult to find a really good one, but we have one here, a TVR Chimera. I still think it offers the most bang for your buck of any modern classic car out there. These are so much fun, but it's a TVR, and that usually means it comes with a bit of a reputation, mostly from people that have never owned one, never had anything to do with one. And they'll tell you it's usually your brother's cousin's next door neighbour will tell you that they're terrible. They smell of plastic and glue, they're forever breaking down, they're horrendously unreliable, they cost a fortune to fix when they go wrong. And I just simply don't see it. These cars have a loyal following, they're fantastic fun, they look great, they drive great, and they've got one of the best soundtracks out there. But we'll take a closer look at some of those things with this car. We'll talk about the good and the bad, and of course I'll talk you through what to look out for as well if you're thinking about buying one. Join me in this video and let's take this TVR Chimera out for a drive. So let's take this Chimera out for a drive. It's a lovely sunny day, best day for a TVR, definitely. And the great thing is, from the moment you start the engine, there's no denying that lovely Rover V8 under the bonnet. It just makes one of the best soundtracks, I think, no matter what this engine is fitted in, whether it be an old Range Rover, whether it be a TVR or the Marcos. I just think it suits these kind of cars so well. Everything is dominated around that 4-litre V8 in this. But the Chimera itself, well, you might think it's quite an intimidating car to drive, and compared to TVRs of old, it really isn't. This particular car, and I love the fact about this particular TVR was previously owned by a vicar. And I just have this wonderful image that he used to turn up to church on a Sunday in his TVR, do his service, and when he was ready to go home, he dropped a few gears, put his foot down, and that just beautiful V8. The wonderful thing about it is you can just ride the wave of torque. Yes, by modern standards, if you were to look at the performance figures, it would probably not seem amazing, but this is an old car now. The TVR Chimera was launched way back in 1992, but it's no slouch. This car can still perform really well. You're talking near 150 mile an hour top speed. Nearly all of them are sub 5 seconds 0 to 60, if that matters to you. But what I like about a car like this is it's relatively lightweight, nice big throaty V8 up front, rear wheel drive, great combination. But remember, no driving aids whatsoever on one of these, so you do need to be a little bit careful. They will catch you out. It's arguably not as hardcore as the predecessor of this car, the Griffith, which I think is a great car. They are arguably a little bit more hardcore than the Chimera, but I think with the Chimera it makes it a much more livable car. You can, and there are many people that do, use these cars on a daily basis, and you can do some really long journeys in these, and it's not taxing. It's an incredibly comfortable cabin to be in, and I'll talk about the interior because that's one of TVR's party pieces really. But when it comes down to the driving experience, well, you might be surprised. Softly sprung. This is a comfortable riding car, and I've come from using the Marcos Mantara, and I'm not going to make direct comparisons in this video. I am going to do another video where we compare them side by side. But I will say, just in this brief instance, in terms of the ride, the TVR is so much more compliant. It's softer. It rides the bumps really well, to be perfectly honest with you. And talk about that Rover V8. Well, you can get it from the 4-litre. They did a high compression 4-litre as well. Power was up from about 240 in standard format, 275 brake horsepower, I think, when it comes to the high compression. Then you go into a 4.3, a 4.5, and then those later cars use the 5-litre, Rover V8. Immensely powerful cars, all make a great soundtrack, all provide plenty of power. I'd probably say the 4 litre is the most plentiful out there. That's what we've got here. And it probably offers you your best bang for buck in terms of what you get for the money you pay. 5 litre cars and those later run out cars are considerably more expensive. Gearbox wise, 2 gearbox options. Early cars use the old LT77 gearbox, all 5-speed boxes. Later cars used the T5 gearbox, really strong. I personally favour the T5, but drive both, see what you feel. Again, this is a personal opinion, yours may differ. LT77 slightly more agricultural, but still a tried and tested box, strong as anything, as the T5 is. And the one way to know about it, if you're driving an early car, LT77 box reverses left and up by first gear. Later T5 gearbox reverses right and down. That's all you need to know. It's the only way to distinguish between the two, really, in the terms of the driving experience. Enjoy that bellowing V8. You can ride the wave of torque. You don't need to be up and down the gears. There's plenty of power. It really is a beautifully engaging drive. The steering is light, the brakes are good. Now let's not forget, no ABS on this, so you've got to be a little bit careful. But having said that, it will pull up to a stop, sharp, precise. It's confidence inspiring. But as I said, it's not a bone shaker. The ride is compliant. The gearbox is a delight to use. It's very short throws. And I will say that when it's cold, it is a little bit stiff to engage the gears, but that's sort of reminiscent of a time gone by, really. Once everything warms up, it just becomes a delight. But step into the cabin. Well, I just think it is one of TVR's greatest achievements. What they could have done, and what so many did at the time, small British low volume manufacturers have made up their interiors of bits of other old cars. You know, look around, there's bits of Ford, bits of British Leyland. Not with a TVR. I'm sure there are little tiny bits in here that are borrowed from other cars, but what they did was put their own wild stamp on it, and I think it's really works on one of these cars. Beautiful sculptured leather padded dashboard, wild color scheme. I mean, look at this in here. It's cream, it's green. I've got green carpet on the door cards, green carpet on the transmission tunnel. It's like the centre court of Wimbledon in here. It's great if you like green, but, and I do, by the way, I think green and cream is a fantastic combination, but everything's a bit wild. This car keeps you on your toes, but the right side of it, you're not terrified to drive it. It's a very well put together car, and you might not expect that from a TVR, but it really is. It's got a large boot. It's incredibly practical. The interior is a wonderful place to be. Yes, it's quirky, and I love that. That's what a TVR should be. And I think when it comes to TVR owners, they are an eccentric bunch. You had to be eccentric to buy one of these. There was always a left field choice. And the TVR Chimera sold really well. So over 6,000 of these were produced. So it does mean in terms of the second-hand car market, there's still a number of really good ones out there. So it makes buying one a little bit easier. Now, before I talk about what to look out for, let's just have one last blast of this Rover V8. Because it really is the TVR's party piece. So there you have it. We've taken the Chimera out for a drive. I've told you what I think it's like to be behind the wheel, and really sort of started to touch on the thing of why I think that these are a really underrated bargain. Prices of them have started to creep up, but as I say, there's still plenty of them available. And if you are tempted to take the plunge and get your own TVR Chimera, Well, no well-rounded review would be complete unless I pointed out just some of the things to look out for. Obviously, and it goes to, goes to show with any car that you're thinking of buying, let alone a low volume TVR, this is a specialist car, but luckily there are a number of specialists that will help you out with one of these. There's great owners clubs and that kind of thing. You can really, really enjoy TVR ownership. It doesn't need to be a nightmare. And as I say, when you're thinking about buying one, get a car independently inspected beforehand. At the very least, you're going to have a list of jobs to work from. You're going to go into ownership with your eyes wide open, but it's also going to help you find a good one from a bad one. It's worth its weight in gold, so do that, that's for sure. But let's just run through some of the very, very basics when it comes to Chimera ownership. And really, the first thing you need to think about is how this car's put together. It's a fiberglass body on a steel tubular chassis, much like every other TVR, to be honest. But there are some things that then highlights. Bodywork-wise, well, you want to be checking it very, very closely. Now, some of these cars, this I think is finished in a beautiful shade of metallic green, and I think it suits the car really well. And the vast majority of Chimeras are in greens, blues, reds, that sort of thing. But there are, especially on the later cars, some wild colours, TVR being famous for their pearlescent, great, crazy colours. And that's fantastic, but if the car has had paintwork or needs paintwork, it's very, very hard to match it. So bear that in mind. But when you come to a green example like this, you want to scrutinise every part of the bodywork, mostly for accident damage. Let's not forget, this is still a highly powerful rear-wheel drive sports car that you can get it wrong, and it can end up the wrong side of a hedge. And a lot of these cars have ended up that way. And you want to make sure that you're getting one that has never seen the other side of a hedge, of course. So scrutinise everything. Look for dodgy repairs, look for cracks in the fiberglass, look for paint matches that just doesn't look right. Check all the panel gaps, make sure things add up. It's basic common sense stuff, but you can go and look at one of these and be a bit doe-eyed, a bit misty-eyed, and forget the obvious stuff. But the really important bit with a Chimera is what's going on underneath. That steel tubular chassis, as time goes by, it can corrode. And usually what you'll see in an advert is the outriggers have been replaced. Now, that's a very common job on one of these as corrosion sets in, that the outriggers on the chassis are usually the first place to go, so they get replaced. The problem is there's different definitions of what replacement of outriggers really means. To do the job properly, you've got to take the body off the chassis. Now, some people will say, no, you've only got to lift it a few inches and that gives you enough access. That is sort of true, but to do the job properly and to make sure that all that corrosion has been assessed properly and repaired properly, the body's got to come off. And that's obviously a very labour-intensive job. So even if you are looking at one of these that says they've been replaced, check who's done it, check the bill. If it's a relatively cheap bill, chances are it's not been done properly. If we've got a bill running into several thousands and it's from a reputable specialist that looks after TVRs, chances are it's been done properly. But you do want to check that because it is a very, very common rust point on one of these cars. The next thing really with these, and it's not a fault of the TVR, they are fairly highly strung, but as I say, in terms of their mechanics, they use the old Rover V8. So everything to look out for on a Rover V8 is applicable to a Chimera, i.e. great service history. They love regular oil changes, whether they're used or not. So check for evidence of that. Little bit tappy on the camshaft. Well, that can happen with higher mileage examples. They start to sort of tap away a little bit. Then you're looking at a bit of a head rebuild, new camshafts, that kind of thing. Not the end of the world, but usually they are done on these cars around 50, 60,000 miles. Major engine rebuilds tend to sort of come in around 100,000 miles. Not always, but it's just as a general idea. Rover V8 though, tried and tested, everything's available for it, and you'll have no problem finding someone that can look after it for you. But the best thing with one of these, and the best advice I can give you, is buy one that has been regularly used. Now that's not really rewriting, I'm stating the obvious really, aren't I? But a lot of these cars now, they're garage queens, and a TVR Chimera will not respect being sat around in a damp garage for months and months on end and taken out on the odd Sunday. These cars love to be used and they reward you for it. Things like the electrics playing up, and let's not forget you've got things like solenoids in the doors because the door handles are under the wing mirror here. They're not in the conventional places. All these things start to seize up through lack of use. You'll have odd electrical gremlins. A tried and tested, well-used car that's been properly looked after is better in every way, in my mind, than one that's just been taken out on a sunny Sunday, popped back in the garage and it doesn't come out for another 6 months. But apart from that, really, it's just doing your own due diligence. There isn't that much to be scared of with one of these. There's loads of people out there that will help you with ownership. Great clubs, great support online as well for them. And I think you can have an awful lot of fun if you decide to take the plunge with a TVR Chimera. But let me know what you think. We've taken it out for a drive, we've looked around it, and I've talked about some of the things you should look out for. I guess the last thing to talk about is price, very, very quickly, because prices are ever changing. You can get a Chimera that's very much up and running for as little as £12,000 to £13,000. That's usually going to be an early 4-litre example, done a bit of high mileage. I probably wouldn't advise you to go for one of those. Spend a little bit more. Something like this is placed firmly in the £15,000 to £20,000 bracket. As I said, previous owner loved this car, cherished it. It's been well looked after. So £15,000 to £20,000. Get to a last of the line, a 500 Chimera, something like that, you're probably looking at about 25 to 30,000 for the very best. So ironically, the very best versions of these are about the same money as what they cost when they were new. So I still think it's an awful lot of car for the money. Yes, you need to go into it with your eyes wide open, but what great fun. Name me another car that gives you British eccentricity, a lovely thumping Rover V8, great support from owners and garages across the country, and it looks this good, it drives this well. I still think it's a bargain, but let me know what you think. Thanks so much for watching. We'll have another video coming up, and I am going to put this side by side with the Marcos Mantara, battle of the 90s V8s, and we'll see how it compares. But thanks very much for watching.